Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy and I was going to be joined by Owen Farrell but his ban got overturned, so I'm joined by a Saracens fan in Derek Brissett. Derek, wearing the red and black of Saracens, support for Owen Farrell. You know, you knew he was innocent all along. Or are you just supporting Sophie de Goody and making the return to North London?
Well, you know, it's that's the great thing about this Saracens jersey. It can do both. It supports obviously Sophie de Goody, the greatest rugby player on the planet, and also supports Owen Farrell, who I think has been getting a lot of backlash on social media. Undeserved, in my opinion. It's not his fault that Welsh player decided to headbutt his shoulder. Like, I don't know why he would do that. That's not his fault at all. His face just shouldn't have been there. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. It's great to see that the World Rugby justice system is once again flawless.
Absolutely.
Overturning that horrendous officiating decision. And also like some of the other cards in that game too. The English sin bin looking like the Flyers penalty box from the 70s. And I think, it's just great to see that Owen Farrell is going to be able to play against Ireland this week. Because I don't know what we would do as a rugby community if we weren't blessed with the greatness of watching Owen Farrell play every weekend. So I figured, I think there's been a lot of people that are being unfair to him online. So I had to rock the Saracens jersey to show a little bit of support for the greatest fly half on the planet.
Who plays at number 8? But enough about Sophie Goody.
Hey, man! I mean, he can do it all. He can do it all. He can do it all. I can't wait for him to win the World Cup. If Canada can't win, if Canada's not there, if I can't enjoy the World Cup, I don't want anybody else to enjoy the World Cup either, right? And the only way that that's going to happen is if Owen Farrell has the best tournament in the history of the Rugby World Cup and can lift the Webb Ellis Cup with his shoulder, obviously, lift that up at the end and have like literally every other rugby nation on the planet furious. It will make me feel so much better as a Canadian. I don't know. I think like I've always been a fan of villains. Right now Owen Farrell seems like the peak villain in World Rugby right now. So I mean, like, Magneto was right, Thanos is right, Owen Farrell's innocent. Go England. I can't wait to see the greatest rugby player in the world thrive this fall.
Yeah, although to be clear, the decision was made by the Six Nations Rugby Disciplinary Board, who made that one. World Rugby.
It doesn't matter who made the decision, as long as it's the correct decision. That's all that matters.
Well, World Rugby may have something to say about that. But anyway, from a team that wears red and black to two teams, one wearing red and one wearing black, because Canada took their Pacific tour to Tonga, where they had 2 games within 5 days. And, as soon as this tour was announced, a lot of people posting on social media was like, oh, these boys are going to get slaughtered. And they were somewhat correct. So the final scores...
Is that what we all thought initially?
Well, slaughtered isn't the, may not have been the exact word that they chose. Beaten, battered, smashed. Take your pick. So, first thing about this tour is that instead of the games taking place like Saturday to Saturday, really strange schedule, because it was on the 10th of August and then the 15th of August, which was a Thursday and a Monday.
For us.
Yeah. So, the first game, the first test in Nuku'alofa, started off as expected. Tonga, very strong, powerful forwards, and pushing the possession. Early scrum penalty that led to a line out. There's little way of opposition, and soon enough, Moley gets over for the first try of the series, and so they're first up, and they get it converted. So 7-0. within the space of 5 minutes. You know, it's
similar.
It's a similar sound and sight for Arrows fans this past year, and it seems to have obviously continued into the Canadian setup. But Peter Nelson did get a penalty, and you know, instead of the team deciding to go for the try, they decided to, you know, go between the uprights, you know, get on the scoreboard already, because, you know, it definitely makes a difference at this stage before a World Cup. You know, you're a team that's not even competing at the tournament. So, you know, keep it easy, keep it light. It's fine. Whatever. Tonga, on the other hand, are actually competing at the World Cup and proceeded to score 2 other tries in that half, including one just before half time. And then the final score of the game, which came in about like the 50th minute. So getting 4 tries. If this was a actual tournament, you know, that's the bonus point right there. But there was a lot of indiscipline within the Tongan team. So Funaki picked up a yellow card in the 32nd minute before Moala got a red card for a tip tackle on Ben Lesage, which got him a red card. And since that game, he has now been banned for 10 weeks for that tackle, and he will, as a result, miss the World Cup. So
should get Owen Farrell to go over and
get Owen Farrell's lawyers over there and
get him tackling tips, or get him the better lawyer, depending on your point of view.
Yeah, you know, just say that you know, help out with a charity, and therefore you can have half your time removed. So the second test took place on, as I said, August 15th, which was the day before we are recording. And again, pretty similar. Try scored by Tonga within the first 5 minutes, but it was basically Tonga's half in the first half, and there was no penalty opportunity. Any gap that formed in the Canadian line, Tonga were able to get over. They scored tries in the 19th, 25th minute, 32nd minute. So, you know, wrapped up the bonus point theoretically, even before half time. And then they score the first try of the second half as well. The momentum's fully behind them. There's no cards, there's no ill discipline this time, so everything's going okay. But, you know, there is actually some, you know, more positives to come for Canada in this regard, in that Isaac Olsen was able to get not only his first try at international level in 15s, but also his second as well, getting his first try in the 64th minute and then following up in the 79th minute, with Peter Nelson only getting the second converted to bring a close to the series and the game, with Tonga winning that game 36-12. And, you know, there's been a lot said about this team, about the decisions made. And I think the question that a lot of people are asking in the rugby community is, how does Kingsley Jones still have a job? Now, admittedly, like, this question was also asked after the series with Chile as well.
Yeah, and a couple times before that, and a couple
times after that, and pretty much every week since that. So
every time Rugby Canada posts something, I think there's a comment about Kingsley Jones in the post. It could even be, that doesn't even have to be like really like rugby related. It could be like, hey, we're gonna have a sale on t-shirts, and then someone's like what's up with Kingsley Jones? I think, you know, watching these two games, I think there's as you kind of said, I think one of the big talking points after amongst the rugby community was Kingsley Jones, and I think that's fueled by a handful of, after both games, some post-match comments from Lucas Rumball after the first game, and then also post-match comments from Jones himself after the second game. I think really is fueling a lot of that, but also like everything that happened in the games, lineup decisions, everything. It's definitely fueling all of that type of discussion. Which, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know how many more podcast episodes I can do being like, he's not great. And it's obviously one of those things. And I think that the second one is also the fan reaction, which I think we can get to in a little bit, because I think some of the I just put out like a little tweet of asking how everybody was feeling when Tonga was up 26-0 in the second game. And there were some interesting responses on that. So I think I want to get into that a little bit, but perhaps we should start with Kingsley Jones, and some of the post match comments. I don't know, Stu. I kind of want to play. I'm gonna play Lucas Rumball's post match video. But Stu, do you have anything that you want to maybe add or preface this video with before we get going?
Yeah, so the context of this clip is these comments taken after the first game between Tonga, so that 28-3 loss. And, we'll also say that when Lucas begins his comments, the microphone, isn't really working. So, we'll try and enunciate what he's saying afterwards. But, play the clip and then we can talk.
I run on training against the Drua, and then you got to come out here and put up performance, which I'm pretty sure that you'll be proud of.
Yeah. Pretty disappointed. I think we had plenty of chances, plenty of possession. It's going to be a tough one to watch on the review, because I think the opportunity for us to put points up was there.
Yes, you create a lot of opportunities out there, and just simple mistake towards the end there was a bit of handling errors. But you put Tonga under a lot of pressure there. What do you need to fix coming up the next week, Tuesday's game?
Yeah, I think we just need to put ourselves under more pressure at training. You don't get international, test match people without putting immense pressure at training. I think we might have been a little too light on each other this week. So probably for next week, just put as much pressure as we can on.
All right. So the first part of that video is kind of hilarious, because the interviewer kind of sets him up for being nice by saying you can be proud of the effort, and then he's kind of like, it's a performance that you can be proud of, and he's like, proud of the effort, and then kind of shifts to some criticism. Obviously I think his comments about not being put under enough pressure in training, I think is the big thing that everybody was kind of focusing on after hearing that clip.
Yeah, so to continue with that, the YouTube rugby guru, that is Rouge Rugby, quote tweeted the final score from the first game from Brian Ray. And he said, relative to everything, it kind of says everything that this was one of Canada's better showings of the last few years. Lucas Rumball saying immediately post-match the loss came from their training not being up to scratch highlights a simple fact. Kingsley Jones is stealing a living. And kind of hard to argue against that. It's I think for a lot of people, a lot of Canadian rugby fans, they want to get behind all the teams. They want to get behind the women's 15s, both the sevens teams, and they want to get behind the men's 15s as well. But it seems that every single thing that's going on off the field is
in the way.
It's cutting them off of the legs. The theme that I've seen with Rugby Canada since coming to Canada, and even probably since from 2011, is this organization will save pennies and lose dollars. They keep making the wrong calls to make, and they'll look at a spreadsheet and they'll say this costs X amount, and if we do this it costs Y amount, so therefore we're going to do the cheaper option, not realizing that spending more money in certain areas can actually save you money in the long term. And one of those things has to be who you have as your men's 15s head coach. Now, admittedly, I know that Kingsley Jones, when he took on this role back in 2017, was the only full-time coach for the men's 15s team. They would just have defense and attack coaches come in for, the ARC or other competitions, for example. And and then you can, and again, that's the same thing of like saving pennies, losing dollars.
Well,
but and the best example is you just have to compare it with the United States. They're just south of the border,
or even any team. Like how many teams? Like I mean, are you getting at Gary Gold being fired?
Yeah,
right?
so
yeah, but even like look at like there's been a couple MLR teams that are already moving on from their coaches after disappointing seasons and stuff too, right?
Yeah, and I pointed out that at his current rate, Kingsley Jones will end this year of his tenure with Canada on a 30% winning percentage.
Obviously, that's not good. I think to me, it's like one. I think as you kind of said, there's the fan base. I think is a little hostile on basically everything that Rugby Canada does right now. And I mean, I think sometimes too, it's like even like before the game, when there was like kind of questions on like the broadcast or where it was going to be shown, right, like that already got everybody like fired up, as far as like Rugby Canada, making a mistake. And I think like when you're kind of going into the game like that, it's like you're looking for things to like pick apart. The biggest issue I think with Jones right now is that I think he's kind of becoming like the ultimate symbol of like the downfall of Rugby Canada. And like we saw the high performance review come out. When did that come out? Like a year and a half ago? And it's like basically the high performance review, if it did anything, it just identified that there's a huge cultural problem within Rugby Canada. And like Kingsley Jones as the head coach of the men's national 15s team, like if you're the head coach of a team, or if you're like in those like directorial type positions, it's like you're going to be the ones that are driving the culture, right? And hearing like Rumball say like, we didn't put ourselves under enough pressure at training this week and stuff, I'm like, that sounds like a bit of a culture thing too. Right. Which starts with Jones. And I think like that's kind of the issue. And it's like, and I right now, like I'm struggling to see how you change that culture without changing the people and not just Jones, but like, not changing the people that dictate what that culture is going to be. Right. And it's like, and I think like for me, I'm like, that's kind of like my biggest thing. Like I want to get into his comments after the other game. But I think like because I'm going into this game and it's like, I don't think it's necessarily a big deal if Canada loses this game.
Again, it's just two completely different teams in different circumstances. One team is preparing for a World Cup, and another team is like, this is our first game in what, like 10 months?
Yeah. But it's obviously like there's those circumstances that are different, but it's just like right now, it's like you kind of want Rugby Canada to be building back up, right? You want like missing the World Cup to be like the rock bottom, like it can't get worse, right? So you want Rugby Canada, and I think right now, I think it's just a lot of fans are having a hard time seeing how the guy that was the head coach throughout all the years that it ultimately led to missing the World Cup staying on is the best option for the for Rugby Canada's men's team, and also like the development of the new players, the guys like Mitch Richardson, Gabe Casey, Isaac Kelly, Sam Perry, that all, and Travis Larson, that all got their first caps, right? Not to mention all the other guys that were, traveling with the team for the first time or have been part of Rugby Canada camps, right? And it's like, is that the best for that group's development to also have the guy that's basically, oversaw the program falling to where they are now, right? Which has led to like the general feeling of like, actually, I would say like, I'll get to it in a second, but maybe like worse than frustration. It's like, a bit of indifference and apathy.
Yeah. I was going to say apathy seems to be the thread amongst like what's been going on for like the past few years with the men's 15s team. It's like, oh yeah, you got a great win against Belgium. It's like, cool, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree.
But yeah, let's talk about the comments from the second.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to actually. I think that's actually what you just said is actually kind of a great like a great segue into that because obviously we got some comments talking about indifference and I'm going to use the word apathy as well after, but I think like you kind of just said, right, like performance against Belgium or whatever, that was good. So after the game, so there's an article up on Rugby Canada's website, a little post-match thing that has quotes from Kingsley Jones, and so he's quoted on the Rugby Canada website saying, "Tonga paid us a lot of respect by starting with such a strong team, particularly in terms of their front row. Unless you're technically bang on in a game of this level with a team of that physical size, you're going to struggle. We struggled with the collisions. We struggled with our maul. We talked at halftime about trying to win the second half. Small wins for us all the time. In that half, we won 12-10, and we are very pleased with that. We've got to keep building. It's unfortunate that we haven't got a game next week because we feel like we get better and better." End quote. That's basically the exact same thing he's been saying since like 2018.
Like for the past 6 years, essentially, since he's taken the reins. Is like,
it's just like,
we gotta do this.
Eventually, Canada's gonna be unreal because we keep getting better every week.
Yeah,
so we're on pace to be the best team in the world.
Move over, All Blacks.
So exactly. So unfortunately for them, I think they're also getting, every other team in the world gets better week after week too. Especially for example, Tonga.
They
also got better
week after week.
But I think it does, because it's like, you go with so let's combine Rumball's quotes with this quotes, right? Like Rumball after the first game, he had talked about not being able to capitalize on the pressure that they had inside Tonga's 22, which he's right about. There was definitely, Canada had the ball in that first game in the right parts of the park fairly often, but it always ended in a turnover of some sort, right? Or a pen, it always ended in a turnover of some sort. And that's something that we've talked about, like, I don't know, since we started doing this podcast at the very least, right? And then also like, Kingsley Jones mentions like, struggled with the collision, struggled with the maul. I'm like, yeah, Tonga scored like what over the 2 series, like what 5-6 tries just off of the lineout maul. But it's like those are problems that Canada's had. This is why it's like it's hard to you can't keep saying that we get better every week when you've had the same problems for years. Or the same downfall. And I think too, like, to me, I'm just like, the one thing that also really bothers me about this, and Kingsley Jones does it a lot, and I know that after a loss, you do want to try to pull positives out of something. For example, it's cool that Isaac Olsen got his first 2 test starts. That's cool. It's cool that there's 5 players that are in their first cap. It's cool that there's a bunch of guys that got their first starts. It's cool that some of those guys made great plays during the. It's all cool. That's all good. All those things are like positives and stuff. Even like the Tongan. The next question that I actually cut off on the interview. The Tongan commentary team actually mentions how good Rumball is at the breakdown, and he kind of talks about what he does at the breakdown a little bit. But it's like, like there's positives in it. But there's part of the quote where Kingsley Jones says, in that half, talking about the second half, we won 12-10.
And they're very pleased with that.
Yeah. And you're pleased, dude, you lost 36-12. Like, it was you lost by 24 points. Like, I don't
can you try and win both halves next time?
Yes, exactly.
Or at all?
It's like, because it's like he says, I like, because that reminds me, it's like earlier too, like when Canada legitimately played really well in the first leg of the qualifying series against the USA.
Yeah.
And Kingsley Jones is right to praise the team for how they played in that game. But he would bring up that game like months after. And every time he would, I'd be like, yeah, but you lost. Like,
you
lost.
I remember him bringing it up after Canada had gotten eliminated from World Cup qualifying.
You lost.
And it's like you won that game. And then you lost the series. And then you won the first game against Chile.
And then
you lost the series. And then you have the historical record of being the first Canadian team to not make it to the Men's World Cup ever.
Exactly.
You have moments to be proud of, but they are moments. Overall, you are doing badly.
Actually, that's almost a great comparison.
Yeah,
that's
and
cool
that's the thing.
It's that, but like
you can't keep coming back to it. It's like a one-hit wonder 20 years later.
Small wins is because part of it, the full quote again, small wins for us all the time. In that half, we won 12-10. We're very pleased with that. It's like at some point, like small wins aren't enough. And it feels like Kingsley Jones ran out of, like, I feel like, you know what I mean? Like Kingsley Jones, I feel like has been walking a plank for like a few years, especially right. And like, it's really like the Rugby Canada fan base with like the swords and the pitchforks pushing him off the plank. But right now he's doing the Looney Tunes thing where like he hasn't looked down yet to see that he's actually 10 feet beyond the plank. So he's just floating in air like Wile E. Coyote before he looks down to realize that he's not standing on anything and will plummet. Right. And like, I feel like it's like at a certain point, you need actual wins.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it's I guess it's cool that you outscore Tonga in the second half, but like they outscored you 26-0 in the first half, so they won the game.
Yeah.
And I think too, like even with that, it's like you could probably go through and find like a lot of second halves like that. In hockey, there's been a lot of the analytics community in hockey has done a lot of work in the past decade on score effects, which the gist of it is that in hockey, that a team trailing by 2 or more, right, will start taking more shots and take more risks offensively because they have to, because they're losing. Whereas a team with a big lead is more likely to just be comfortable with that big lead, play a lot more conservatively. And that kind of leads to things like in hockey anyways, shots on goal and stuff being skewed in favor of the team that's losing.
Yeah.
Because they have to. And it's like, I think in a similar sense, I think that kind of applies here too. It's like, like you're losing the game. Like you have to push. Tonga's has the one thing that I have on this podcast is like a semi joke. It's the best defense is a 50-point lead.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, if you like, it's Tonga sitting at a 26-0 lead at halftime. Like they're fine with like, hey, like, like if they give up a try, like they have time to like regroup and stuff. Like they're
and consider this in the first test, in the second half, they had a player red carded.
Yeah.
And then they scored a try. Canada didn't score at all in that second half.
Okay, so that's the other thing too, because he does mention like how strong the Tongan team is. And this is the thing that does also kind of bother me about this tour. There was 7 uncapped players in Tonga's lineup for the second game, right? A whole bunch of them I think 5 of them came off the bench, right? So that's a lot of uncapped players. But like, why? Tonga's prepping for a World Cup, so obviously there's going to be guys competing for a position, competing to make the World Cup squad, but also competing to like, start or, solidify their roles on the team. Right. But like, why why is Tonga making more lineup changes than Canada?
This is something else that really pissed me off,
Like,
because not only is this like, oh, this is a 2-match tour, and yes, there's like, oh, you had a scrimmage with the Fijian Euro, sure, great, but also this isn't a Saturday to Saturday match fixture. It's a 5-day turnaround, and you can say like, oh yeah, we're doing that because Tonga have a short turnaround during the World Cup. Cool. You know what you do in the World Cup? You cycle your squad. You give players opportunities, because you can't basically have your starting lineup be the same again 4 days later. So these are the names of the players that went on tour and their positions. So Callum Botcher, flanco and back row. Kyle Steeves, tight head prop. Matthew Klimchuk, lock. Tyler Wong, hooker. Zephyr Malink, number 8. Kieran Breen, fullback. Deshaun Bowen, winger. Graydon Bad, fly half. Jack Shaw, winger. That is 9 players in this tour that didn't get a second of test rugby. And some of these guys already have caps as well. And
why not just more experience and stuff? That's like,
you got to give guys opportunities for them to get experience, for them to have experience.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like looking at this. It's like, Jack Shaw was one of the best players in MLR. This year. Well, maybe not one of the best, but he was like one of the best rookies in MLR this year.
Yeah.
And he was a solid winger. He started like most of the games for Rugby ATL. And he was obviously he was a really good player. And I'm like, do you need to start Kainoa Lloyd in both of these games?
Exactly.
And that's not like, I don't mean
that's not a slight on him.
It's Kainoa Lloyd. No, exactly. I'm not saying that as like a reflection of how Kainoa Lloyd played. I'm just like, can we not shift some of these guys around? I think it's we have to figure out who's going to be the fly half and fullback of the future. Right.
Who's going to be there for 2027?
Do we need to see Peter Nelson start both games, or can we mix in Kieran Breen? Can we?
Breen, Bowen, sure. You can mix that up. You can have that. You have them starting the second.
I don't want to sit here and go through each one of these players and be like, oh, this guy could have been taken out for this guy. That's going to be a really boring podcast. Boring and repetitive. But I think you can do it for pretty much every player. I don't see why you, at the state of where Rugby Canada is, where you got to try to figure out things for the future. Why not see what guys have, or why not test different combinations? Because it's one thing. I really like that Mitch Richardson got to play 80 minutes in the second game against Tonga.
Yeah,
in his second cap, his first start. Would he have gotten that opportunity if Ben Lesage didn't get hurt on that red card?
Who knows?
Right. And I don't want to see Ben Lesage getting hurt, but I did like that Mitch Richardson got an opportunity to start, right? And so it's there's all that. I don't know, I think there's a lot of reasons that Rugby Canada fans are frustrated with Kingsley Jones, right? And I think like I said, I think the biggest one is, to me, he's still the beacon of he's become, I think, the symbol of the culture that needs to change at Rugby Canada. Right. And I think that's just where we're at. The fans, as we kind of have mentioned, like you said, I put out a tweet, as I said, when Tonga was up 26-0, and just said, how's everyone feeling? And got a response. One of the responses was from Kyle Lambert, at Kyle M. Lambert on Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it now. Basically, he said, his response is indifferent, just like Rugby Canada's management. Apparently, I feel badly for the grossly underpaid players. And then a handful of people liked the tweet, and also continue to comment on it. Payne_CC also added to that, said that's a feeling Rugby Canada should never want its small fan base feeling. If we lose interest, who is left? Then he adds time to fire Kingsley and Howley, which I mean I think that's how a lot of fans are feeling. But I think like indifferent, and then hearing like people, like seeing people like agree with it, it's tough because it's like that's probably indifferent or apathy is probably the absolute worst state that a sports team's fan base can be in.
Yeah.
Like when you're at the point of like, hey, like I mean, I know I said like for development purposes, I don't think it's a big deal if Canada loses the game, but it's like if people are like, we just don't care what the result of the game is, like that's different. Or it's just like, you know, like I wonder like how many people saw the tweet of, you know, there being no broadcast and then of the first game, and then just were like, well, I don't care to watch it then, and you know, didn't tune into that game, right? Or even just like, you know, how many people are like, oh, it's a Monday night, like I don't care, like I'm going to sleep because it starts at 10 o'clock Eastern time and I got to be up for work. Right, like that's not a good state of mind for a fan base to be in. And it's like it goes to show you like it's like Rugby Canada's got a lot of things that need to be fixed. And you know, like there's a lot of on-field things, there's a lot of things within the boardroom, but like one of those things is going to be like how do you get people interested in you know what I mean, like people interested in this team, especially like I think like I feel like a lot of this is more directed directly at the men's 15s team at the moment. But you know, how do you get people to like become interested in this team again? And when it's like it feels like everything that Rugby Canada kind of does is just like it just feels like the fan base is just at a point where it's just like, you know, if they lose, who cares? If they win, who cares? You know, it's like everyone's like, I already bought my, you know, my Ireland jersey for the World Cup or whatever new team you're gonna cheer for. Like, you know, people just kind of seem like they kind of want to move on. I mean, like these games were in the middle of the week, too, and it's just like I don't know, like it just feels bad. Like if like because it's like I don't think you can blame the fan base or anybody for being like for feeling indifferent or a sense of apathy towards this team, right? Because it's like you can only watch like the downfall for so long, right? Until like they gotta at some point, it's like there's got to be a reason to like cheer for them. And it's like and it's like I want that to be like the next crop of players and stuff that's coming up, or like, you know, the like for any other, like I mean obviously this is international, but like, you know what I mean, like for like the like you compare it to like the Toronto Arrows, it's like, okay, tough season last year. You can get excited for the draft, you can get excited for some of the trades that have been made this year, you can be like, you know, excited for, you know, the changes that are coming and like, you know, build for the future or whatever. It's like, you know, any NHL fan, it's like when your team's struggling, it's like you immediately go to, well, we're going to get the number 1 pick next year. And like, you know, Austin Matthews, Connor Bedard, like those guys become the thing that you look forward to. I think like Rugby Canada needs that, but I think to circle back to our original point, I think right now, like Kingsley Jones seems like he's the roadblock to anybody feeling anything remotely positive about this team. Because
I agree.
Anything positive just becomes back to, well, he's still the coach.
Any goodwill that was going Kingsley Jones's way, kind of went out the window when Canada failed to qualify for the World Cup and he didn't resign on the spot.
Yeah,
and again, you can look to the United States. You know, you're position as head coach is to be responsible for on-field results and stuff. So when you're saying things along the lines of like, oh, they paid a lot of respect by having a strong team, unless you're technically bang on in a game of this level with a team of that physical size.
Why weren't you technically bang on?
Exactly. What the hell?
Yeah. Because you had
it's your job, you idiot.
Yeah.
It'd be like, oh yeah, you know, if the wind had been blowing in another direction, no, it's your responsibility. It is your job to get this team to a level where a game like this is competitive. And yeah, you can say like, okay, because you know we're not in the World Cup and we're not doing this, we're going to bring all these young guys in, we're going to give them international experience, and you know. And then because winning isn't the most important thing, we can give them experience. And congratulations, you achieved nothing. It's infuriating because the fan, like, you're right, the fans want to cheer for this team. They want to support the team and support these players. And the overwhelming feeling and the overwhelming sense of culture from Rugby Canada is we don't care. You know, it'd be like, oh, we don't have the money. We don't have the money to get a good coach in, so we'll just have Kingsley stick around and fulfill his contract.
Well, I was going to say, because Nathan Bombrys and Stephen Aboud,
I was actually going to mention something along those lines.
Yeah, but they obviously were both hired after the high performance review. They were both
as a result of the high performance review.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like they obviously weren't here for the failure to qualify for the World Cup or for any of the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Funny because Tonga was the team that Rugby Canada beat at the 2011 World Cup to move up to 11th in the world rankings.
Yeah.
And compare that to this weekend. But like for Stephen Aboud and Nathan Bombrys and stuff, it's like this is going to be like a major decision that they got to make. Is if Jones's contract is up, who's going to be the head coach of the Canadian men's team. And right now I think like they have a lot of goodwill just because it's like they weren't here for the downfall, but like I don't know how the fan base would react to Kingsley Jones coming back. And I think if that does happen, I think Bombrys and Aboud might burn a lot of the goodwill that they have by not being a part of the previous regime. Because if that's a decision that gets made to bring them back, then now it's actually like, now that's also your problem too, because you've carried that on. But it's such a weird, like, I don't know, it's such a weird point to be at, because I'm like even if you do, like, say if tomorrow we find out that Kingsley Jones is no longer the head coach, then you just circle. Then it's also head scratching, because then it's just like, what was the point of the Tongan games?
Exactly. Yeah,
right? Like it's like you're like, it's gone on for so long that no matter what you do, it doesn't feel like it's the correct thing because it needed to be done so long ago.
Yeah,
that it's like
now again, you can like, say if the only way I can see it working in their favor is that they say, this contract was in place before we joined, and therefore, for financial reasons, whatever, we see the conclusion of it. But again, I think like this is why I said like there is no goodwill to Kingsley Jones, is because he should have stepped down.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe. I mean, nobody wants to most people don't want to voluntarily quit their jobs. But
if you're bad at it, someone may do it for you.
Yeah. So. But it's like, I think that's the thing is, it's like, it feels like it's weird because like, that's kind of also it's like, it's not just the Tongan games though. It's obviously he's the head coach still. right? And it's like,
Yeah.
so he's been working as the head coach the entire time, right? So like, if even if you do, like, it's all like, because it's almost like it's already the wrong decision, because it's like, even if you do choose to not renew the contract or terminate it or whatever, right? Then it just becomes like, well, what was the point of what did he do all of last year? Then it's like literally everything that any of the coaching staff worked on for like the past year almost feels like a waste of time, because it's
that's what
and
everyone's
also
been
it's
saying.
like the rebuild of the team would be a year behind.
Yeah.
Already. Like, it's just, no matter what happens now, it feels, it's weird to say that. It's like, no matter what happens now, it almost doesn't feel like the right call either way now, because it's so far gone. Like, time to make.
But I'm still in the camp of he needs to, like,
so
the like saying of like, the best time to plant a tree is like,
I was just thinking
50 years ago. It's like the best time for Kingsley Jones to retire or to resign would have been after the Chilean game. The second best time is right now.
You're right.
And but that's the thing. And that's the thing, is in, I think when you've got like guys like Stephen Aboud coming in, and he's the guy who's meant to be doing the pathways from like junior age grade up to like, K to like the Pacific Pride and stuff. And if you're a young kid, like under 18, and you want to play rugby for Canada, and you have to make a choice between 7s and 15s, and you're looking at the 15s and you're seeing, a completely substandard level of playing.
Well,
and then you may even say like, well, what's the point? What's the point of me doing this? What is there for me to go for?
Well, no matter who the coach is in 2024, like, you can't be wrong right now.
No.
Like, there's no time to, like, you can't be wrong. You can't get whatever the decision is that, Bombries or Aboud makes in regards to the coach for 2024 and beyond. Like, you can't be wrong with that decision, because it already feels like it's already starting to feel like Canada hit rock bottom, but is finding a way to drill deeper.
They say things are like out of their control, like, oh, we can't get like any game time because World Rugby won't allow it. To which I'd say, get 15 guys in red, get 15 guys in black, do a 3-match series on Vancouver in Victoria. That's some game time. Not perfect, but it's something. And
there's a lot of teams playing games in September and October.
Yeah, then there's a lot of teams not playing games. But in conclusion, that is the summary of the.
In conclusion, Tonga tour. Please send help.
Please send help. Yeah,
for both. Yeah, you can donate to our You can donate to
for just $5 a day. You can fund a better coach for Canada's men's team.
Yeah, you can fund our therapy. Therapy can be expensive in Toronto.
That's why I'm saying it's probably cheaper just to pay for a new head coach.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it might be at this point.
From Tonga back to North America, we're gonna take a quick pit stop in Toronto because there was some trade news that came in earlier this week, and that is the case of that. The Arrows, they're still making trades. They're still making trades with Rugby ATL of all teams, or should I say, the team formerly known as Rugby ATL.
Yeah.
There have been a few other trades going in. I mean, NOLA Gold has been picking up more draft picks in the first round pick in the draft, salary cap consideration next year, and Seattle get Devon Short. But the Arrows, in exchange for salary cap considerations, have received the playing rights to, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, Te Rangatira Waitakia, who is a winger or fullback was a winger or fullback for Rugby ATL, and we're now hopefully going to be playing in Toronto next season.
Played with Sam Malcolm for the Turbos back in New Zealand as well. So they got some familiarity.
Yeah, he's picked up quite a few caps with ATL as well. I think it's something along the lines of 42, I want to say.
Yeah, he's played a lot for Rugby ATL. He's been a really good player for them too.
Scored 14 tries, 309 carries, and 2023 he of those 14 tries he scored 8 last year. 111 carries last season. You know, from his stats, he seems to be getting better season on season.
Yeah.
So by that mathematical logic, he'll have his best season ever in MLR next year when he's playing for the Arrows.
I mean, I think that's the idea. It's interesting. Obviously, I guess Tim Matthews has found a nice trading partner in Rugby ATL. If they've made a couple deals. Interesting that it's like, you know, two like the first few players that we know about, at least. Well, sorry, I was about to say that they're mostly international players that we've heard of so far, but that exclude Robbie Povey obviously was also acquired in a trade from Houston. So it's you know, there's been a handful of international players to kind of out of the first 4 signings or trades that we know of, acquisitions that we know of, all you know, a couple, you know, some trio of international guys coming over too, which you know, it is a little bit different. I think we're kind of used to hearing about all the Canadian guys first.
Yeah.
But you know, it'll you know, still excited to kind of see where this goes. Atlanta's backline was good. I mean, Toronto had a problem with it for the past few years.
Yeah,
so I mean,
hey, true.
Like if you can't beat them, join them, right? Or have them join you, I guess.
They join you because they technically don't exist anymore.
But also like the fact that he's played with Malcolm and stuff too, I think that really helps. I mean, that's some built-in chemistry and things.
I'm really hoping,
and also I'm really hoping that means Sam Malcolm's also going to.
Yes, because
it's like we're trading for your friends. Like,
all right, he's here. Around. I'm leaving. See you guys. Yeah, that doesn't really make sense, but you know, obviously, we're hoping that confirmation that Malcolm will be playing next season as well. So. Have Tay and Sam rejoin their Turbos partnership, and hopefully he'll be racking up points left, right, and center as Arrows climb the table, looking to get that shield next season. Now, I did mention in one of the trades of you know, draft allocations, and so that is that time of year. We have the MLR draft coming out this week. I believe that when this podcast is released, it'll be on the same day. So if you're looking at the draft list and thinking like, who are the Canadians that I can really be looking for and hoping you're getting picked up, we have a list. These are the These are the Canadian-born players, or they've listed as their hometowns is located in Canada. And so I'm going to give you their names and their positions. So first up, we have Monty Weatherall as fly half, Jack Wallace, a blindside flanker, Kyle Corrigan as an open side winger, Scott Bowers as a hooker, Jack Morris, a blindside winger, Alexandre Larendo as a blindside winger, Theo Espanol as a hooker, Shane Rickley Crindle as an outside center, Josh Halliday as a loose head lock, Connor Williams, a loose head prop, Stanislas Blazkowski, fullback, Galel Rezig, a blindside flanker, and Louis Millet, a blindside flanker, as well as Gabe Casey, an inside center, a Canadian capped inside center, picking up his first cap in that second game against Tonga. And if you're wondering, Gabe Casey does sound familiar, but it's not from that Tonga game. You may remember that he was picked by the Arrows last year. However, they were unable to come to a contract by the set time within MLR, so he has rejoined the draft for this year as well. And Galel Rezig from Montreal is already listed in the Arrow Senior Academy on top of that. So we have quite a selection of players.
Yeah. One name that's not on this list, though, that I find is kind of interesting is Isaac Kelly, who obviously played both the games against Tonga, right? So he's out of UBC, and like seems like he would be a good fit on any MLR team. There's been some talk about guys not declaring for the draft, so I'm hoping to see Isaac Kelly in the MLR next year.
We shall see. But for any of you interested in watching the draft, it is available in Canada in its entirety on the Rugby Network. It'll be available this Thursday, the 17th of August from 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you are looking to watch any rugby this weekend, obviously there's the pre-World Cup warm-up games going on. But if you're looking for Canadian rugby, as we always are, we actually have the Olympic Sevens qualifiers, which are taking place in Victoria. And, so the USA women's have already qualified through the World Series, or Sevens, as it's now known. And for the men, it is both Canada and the USA, with whoever finishes first of the men and women getting that spot in Paris 2024. And if you finish second or third, you then move on to the final spot qualifiers, which will be taking place next year. So obviously, getting it done now and out of the way, great relief. But you can watch all those games on CBC Gem. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more, as well as our written pieces, on our website, therougerugby.ca. You can also find our podcast on Spotify, S4P, and Apple Podcasts. We have a YouTube channel at The Rouge Rugby with episodes of the podcast, as well as extra interviews with players and coaches. So make sure you like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all our videos. We're also available across social media, including Facebook, Twitter, or X, whichever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, all at The Rouge Rugby. Derek, where can the fine people find you on social media?
At Reset the Jet across all social media platforms.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Derek, thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining us on the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.